In this video, I'm going to talk about both the spot healing and the healing brush because they're very, very similar. And to remind you, on portraits, you have to use one of the three tools: clone stamp, spot healing brush, or healing brush. You can use all three of them. It just depends on what works best for you, but you have to use at least one. So I'm going to find one of my images that I want to do the spot healing. Spot healing is generally going to be better for skin, so things like little pimples or crease or things like that. You can use it on the background, and you can also use it on hair. It just honestly depends. Sometimes you just have to try one, and then if that doesn't work, use a different one. So I think I'm going to do it on this guy right here. She doesn't have much wrong with her skin, just normal little textures. But like there's some little spots here and here that I could heal with the healing brush. Okay, so you do need another layer. Okay, so I do want to see your work, and I do want you to name the layer. So you can either do on your top layer, make sure you're on the very top if you have multiple layers, layer, duplicate layer, or you can do Command J, and always pay attention which layer you're on. Okay, so if I do Command J, it's going to just rename it a copy of the other layer. And I'm going to rename this spot healing / healing brush. I want you to name your layers. Don't forget, I will ask you to redo that. If you don't, then you need to know which is which. Okay, so the spot healing and healing brush are both the J keys. And they look like Band-Aids. They're right above each other, so it just depends on which one you have. The computer has, whoever's used the computer last has used. So they only work slightly differently. So let me hover, and it should say the name. Someday. Okay, so the top one is the spot healing. There we go. And the bottom is the healing brush. Okay, the spot healing, the computer will choose the match for you. The healing brush is similar to the clone stamp in that it will choose, you have to choose yourself. So sometimes the spot healing works great and it's a good match and you don't have to do anything else. And other times you're like, that looks terrible and I need to choose myself. That's when you would want to use the healing brush. Okay, like the clone stamp, you need to choose your options at the top. They're slightly different. Okay, so first we have a size, which we're used to. Okay, so if I'm going after this little tiny bump here, this is a pretty good size. Hardness, you just have to experiment with, so I'm going to try around 25%. Spacing, imagine it's a digital brush, and if you put spaces in between, the coverage is not 100%. So in my case, I don't want spacing. There might be times you want spacing, I don't. I also don't want to angle my brush. Okay, and I want a round brush, so 0, 100. Okay, clicking off of that, the next thing I want my mode to say normal, and then I have three options. I have content aware, that means it's going to be aware of the content that's around it. Okay, I have create texture, which is not really what I'm trying to do. If I was trying to like do something with a brick wall, that might be a texture that I'm trying to recreate. And then there's also proximity match. So I would try one of the two here and then see which one works better. I'm going to try proximity match because I don't really need it to be content aware of what's around it. It's not like a pattern or anything like that. For a hair, you might do content aware. You just have to experiment with that. And then for proximity match, you have to choose an amount of diffusion. Again, you just have to like try and see what works best. So I'm just going to go with like right in the middle and see how that looks. Okay, I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little bit better. And then again with spot healing, I don't have to choose. I just click on it. Bam, it's healed. Okay, and if that did not look good, if my diffusion didn't look good or the match wasn't good, what I could do is go to content aware, maybe texture, but it's not really a texture. So your other two are probably your safer bets. And just clean up a little stuff. You can also draw if it's a line. Just be aware, like, see, that creates too much blur, so I don't want that. I can get rid of maybe this little hair here. Okay. Okay, now the next one I don't want to do too much because I want to show you the difference with the healing brush instead of spot healing brush. Okay, so the difference in this one, I have to choose the source myself, like a clone stamp. Now you might be like, well, why would I use this instead of clone stamp? The healing brushes are a little bit more useful for skin, and then clone stamp is maybe more useful for like a background or an object. So this is independent. I still have to choose a size, a hardness, spacing, angle, roundness, okay? So I'm going to go after this spot here. It's probably a little bit smaller. Mode, I want to say normal. Okay, and then here I have to choose between sampled and patterned for source. I want sampled. Again, this isn't a pattern. Okay, again, I have to choose a diffusion. I'm just going to go in the middle and see how that works. Okay, if I just click, it's not going to be a match, so see that? What I want to do is hold down Option and choose, let Option go, and then put that on top. Okay, so I'll do a couple more. Option, clicking, and then I put it on top. I'll do some up here, so I'll do this line. Just a little crease in her forehead, probably a scar. I wouldn't necessarily get rid of freckles, but I'm just trying to show you guys what you can do, so I want to do enough to make a difference. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back out. Before we go on to the next thing, make sure that your edits are making a difference. So again, for this, you only have to do one of the 3 minimum: clone stamp, spot healing, or healing brush. But turn those layers on and off and make sure there's a visible difference. Okay, so turn that one off to see this one. You can see there's quite a big difference with my clone stamp. Not a huge amount with my spot healing brush, but there is a change, so that would be fine. Okay, if you have not already saved this as a Photoshop, make sure you go File, Save As, and make sure that you have created a folder under Portrait Edited that's called Portrait Photoshop Edited. Make sure the format says Photoshop. Make sure you have layers checked. I've already saved this, so I should just have to go Command S to save it again. Okay, and save it before we go on to the next required edit, which will be frequency separation.